What's up, troopers? We're here for another TFT mini. Where we're here to talk about the big guy, the main man, Mike,
Emperor
Mister.
Palpatine?
All right, start it over. No, just kidding. No, the apprentice of Emperor Palpatine, though not the one titled Emperor Palpatine's Apprentice. I think that's actually a different version of this gentleman. This one, the one that we're going to be talking about here, is Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, which is the commander version of Darth Vader. And it is the version that comes in the starter set, and it's also one of the two versions that come in the Vader and Veers expansion packs. So we figured we would start with the main one, the one that gets played a little bit more often, the one that comes in the starter, and that way, like, we're going to cover all of the command cards in addition to the unit card, and that way when we do the operative as a separate video for parts of that, we can just refer back to this one. But to start out with, Mike, can you distill Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith into one word? It's a challenge.
Blender.
It's a good word. Are you perhaps saying that because he has, from a raw math perspective, like, does he have the best lightsaber in the game? I'm pretty sure he does. If you take away any upgrades or command cards or anything. 6 red dice with Pierce 3.
Or if we're not assuming like command card effects and stuff like that, I think that's probably true. I think his unmodified attack is probably the best in the game.
Yeah. It's either him or Dooku.
Without upgrades, like
right.
Anakin with tenacity is definitely
exactly.
Obviously better.
The main aspect that's worth pointing out of his lightsaber is Pierce 3, right? The only people that are currently or were once named Anakin Skywalker have a natural Pierce 3 on their attack. Like, there are ways to get there with certain other situations and other characters, but this is the only natural situation in the game. So that's where the whole blender thing comes in. The other thing that I think anybody who is just learning the game, certainly what I remember noticing when I looked up Darth Vader, is I was comparing his health to the health of most of the other named characters in the game and just going like, whoa, 8, that's a lot. Now, we're going to get into a reason why it sort of is and sort of isn't actually 8 in the course of an entire game. But a baseline of 8 is another rare thing. General Grievous is the only other character that I can think of where a single mini has 8 health. So he's more machine than man, just like Grievous is. And just like sort of finishing up the rest of his unit card, he has the things that most Jedi have, which is to say that he has Jedi or Sith, I should say. He has Deflect, he has Immune Pierce, and then he has the thing that only a few Jedi and Sith have, which is Master of the Force. His is Master of the Force 1, most specifically, which means that it's a little bit less than your Dooku's and Yoda's out there. And then he has Relentless as his move and attack keyword, which is lovely because it allows you to both charge and then also use it for saber throw, is the other situation where Relentless would come into play for him. And then we won't talk too much about the old version of Vader, but at a certain point in the right before the new version of the game, he got a bit of an upgrade, which is to say that he got Compel Core Trooper added to his list, which is definitely a very lovely addition. And in terms of slots, it's relatively straightforward. He's got 3 Force slots and 1 command. So I think that the command cards are super important, Mike, but what would be, if you had to distill a general strategy of what you do with Commander Vader in your average game, like, how would you describe it? And you're allowed to use more than one word this time.
Great. So I think the one thing about the unit card that actually informs this significantly is Vader's speed. He is a speed 1 small base trooper unit.
Yes.
He is slow. which means that you really, when you're playing Commander Vader and you get to the table and you get into turn 1, you really need to have a plan for where Vader is going to go. And you really should probably be starting to articulate that plan to yourself in your head, like even before the turn starts, and be like, this is kind of where I want him to go. And you should hold him, like most focus pieces, towards the tail end of the turn, if not last. And then deploy him towards the area of the board where you're going to think you need him most, which obviously is a no-brainer. But the big thing about Vader is that, unlike most characters, you basically cannot like redeploy him or like shift his deployment over once you've sent him like the missile he is wherever you start going. You do not have the time in the game to reprioritize what his mission is.
It's a 5-round game.
It's a 5-round game.
When you're speed 1, usually, that means that wherever you end up, you're probably going to be there.
He's going to move a total of probably 11 times if you actually play 5 turns, but he's probably actually going to move 9 times because it's probably going to go to turn 4. The extra move is coming from Implacable, which we'll talk about later. And so, you know, and they're speed 4, not speed 4, they're speed 1 4-inch moves. So
yeah,
that's a total of,
can't get that far.
It's a little bit. It's 36 inches in total. That's he's gonna move kind of the short edge length of the table over the course of the game at best.
Now, I feel like this is actually a good place to start talking about his upgrade slots, actually, because the thing that you just said is true regardless of whether you put burst of speed on Mr. Vader. But the important thing about burst of speed is that it enables him to get to the chosen destination significantly faster.
Yeah.
And so pretty much ever since burst of speed has existed, it has been relatively close to being an auto include, at the very least on the commander version of Vader, because as you said, he is speed 1. There is another way to get him moved forward a little bit on the battlefield that we'll talk about with the command cards, but can you think of many Vader builds that don't have burst in them?
I'm gonna go a step further and say that if you're watching this guide as a way to learn how to play Commander Vader, you have to take this upgrade. It is not. Yeah. It's not. I don't want to paint this as an option for you. Once you've played Vader 10 or 15 times and you're feeling like you know what's going on, great. You can decide to leave burst of speed at home. That's fine. But from a starting perspective, I would really not recommend that you leave home without burst of speed. It turns him into a unit that is there is some margin of error as opposed to none.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And it should be mentioned that burst of speed, of course, gives you an immobilized token at the end of the round in which you played it, which means that you play burst of speed, that at Vader's next activation, he will not be able to move at all. End of story, nothing, because his speed he will have a maximum speed of 0, which basically prevents him from having any moves.
There's a caveat to that, but yes.
There's a caveat. So what's the caveat that you want to mention, Mike?
The caveat is that you can take a standby to sort of get around that.
That's correct. So you can take a standby, although these days the fact that you can't make a relentless attack off of the standby makes it a little bit less attractive to do something like that. And then there's actually another caveat to that as well, which is to say if you play Implacable, which we'll be talking about in a second, then on your second activation, you would actually be able to do a speed 1 move because your immobilized token will go away at the end of his first activation. So that's also sort of gets around it. But we're going to talk about Implacable in a second because often there's different strategies that people use with burst of speed instead of what I just mentioned. So moving on, as far as the upgrades go, I think it's fair to say that even though there's one that the two of us certainly consider to be almost required, but that technically the second most commonly taken upgrade on Commander Vader is Saber Throw.
Yes. I would,
yeah.
Particularly when you're starting out, and we're talking about upgrades that are basically stapled to this guy and that make him easy to use. Saber Throw is less mandatory than Burst of Speed, but it is a good starting point if you're trying out Vader for the first time. And it's frankly always useful. And, if we go back to that standby kind of discussion that we just had, you can't trigger Relentless off a standby, but you can throw your lightsaber, right?
Yeah.
And one of the nice things about Saber Throw is it inherits the melee. The melee profiles keywords, but does not half them. So you still get Impact 3 and Pierce 3 when you're throwing your lightsaber, which is a big deal.
Yeah, so that means whether they have armor or not, as long as they don't have immune pierce or immune ranged pierce, and they will still get to do their cover rolls, which can make you super sad sometimes, but anything that gets past cover is damage taken. And that's 3 red dice. It's fairly reliable. It's especially reliable if he has surge tokens, which again we'll get to with the command cards. So that means that your typical Vader is going to have burst and saber throw, and then you end up with, I think we would say there's a little bit of a dichotomy, is that are you going to really put your money into Vader, in which case you're talking about Force Push, because Force Push remains, as of this recording, the most powerful, potentially powerful upgrade in the game. It's there. You can quibble about that back and forth, but there's a reason it's 40 points, right? Is that because it can truly affect game state in monumental ways. And then especially for Commander Vader, there's many types of units out there where, quote, tar pitting, which is to say getting into melee with Vader with the intent of dying, but slowing him down to keep him away from more valuable units. Vader, you really don't want the unit that you spent almost a quarter of your points on to be tar pitted, and so Force Push is a way to help prevent that from happening. It also helps you deal with immune melee pierce units, which there are many more of than full immune pierce. So like a Magna Guard, if they're engaged with you, you can just push them off and then saber throw them in the face and do a lot of damage. I'd say that the quote cheap version of Vader is the one with Force Choke instead of Force Push. Why? And I guess it would be good to explain to folks, Mike, why that is like an okay runner-up as far as that third Force slot.
Yeah, I mean, I think you described Force Push adequately in that, like, it's super powerful if you. I think one of the things with Force Push is that it's really hard to use if you don't know what you're doing with it. So if you are newer to the game, I'd recommend kind of going the Force Choke route. And Force Choke is it's kind of just like it's like adding another red die on his lightsaber and giving it Pierce 4 sort of, except you don't have to roll any dice, which is really nice. So often Force Choke is just going to be somewhere between 4 and 6 just automatic damage over the course of the game. This kind of helps you do a bunch of things. It allows you to potentially finish off units that you didn't finish off with your lightsaber. Like 6 Pierce 3 is often going to kill units, but when it doesn't, you're probably only going to leave one left, right? Yeah. And Force Choke allows you to just kind of finish it and move on, so you don't have to waste another attack on it. Similarly, if you're in a situation where you're stuck in melee with like a unit leader, because a common tar pit strategy is like people using their solo unit leaders to tie things up in melee because they know they're going to die anyways, but that's like a thing that they can do other than attacking, because attacking is not very good anymore. Force Choke just kind of allows you to pick them up off the table. And I think, it simulates what Force Push does in those situations a lot of the time. Force Push often is, removing a unit from scoring a POI. Force Choke can do the same thing in eliminating one, right? It's just a little bit more narrow.
Yeah. And even though to newer players, just doing one single automatic wound, it may not sound like it's a ton, but once you've done it enough, you realize just like how much it shifts the math over the course of a game, especially when you're up against units that have minis that are relatively harder to kill, such as Mandalorians. Like when you can effortlessly get rid of a Mandalorian model, it's money in the bank.
Or an arc or whatever,
yeah,
right? You know,
yeah, exactly.
And I think, you know, when you take Force Choke on a unit that has Master of the Force like Darth Vader, it's going to remove about a unit a game.
Yeah, exactly. So he also has a command slot. This is one where I think there's plenty of options. It's often left blank, but for Empire list where order control is often a problem, improvised orders is something that is very often helpful. The other thing that I shamefully neglected to mention about his unit card is, of course, the fact that he has a dash courage value, which is a pretty uncommon thing in the game. Like usually most other characters that have access to that have to get wounded enough to the point that they get enraged, and only one of those, which is Republic Chewbacca, is even a commander at all. So him having the dash courage value is one of actually the most unique parts about him, and it means that anybody who is within command range of him is never actually panicking in terms of the rulebook sense. You can still, there are still some effects, like especially the bring them to heal objective, that can be done to you. It doesn't, or at least part of the bring them to heal objective will apply to you, but it prevents you from being in a place where you will be dropping objectives or not contributing to POIs, and that's true for Vader himself and then anybody else who's in command range. So all that is to say, another fairly common choice is Inspiring Presence, which allows his command range for panic to be extended to 4 instead of 3, which basically just kind of ekes out a little bit of extra value. If Vader is central in the battlefield, then a way to think about that is that it's actually extending out the range of his command by range 1 on each side, which can actually mean that you're getting quite a bit of extra oomph out of your command range. And there's other things that people can do. I've seen some lead by examples on Vader's, which I think is kind of funny. And then if you have an operative focus list, then running Trusted Agent, relatively newer upgrade, may be something that you find helpful for you for order control. But world's your oyster. Just pick what your list needs and go with that one. If you can't figure it out, then, and if you have the points, then just do improvised orders, because that's pretty much always helpful. Anything else to add to that, Mike?
No, I think, well, I guess yes. This is maybe one of the only units in the game where I think you can make a justification for basically every command slot.
Yeah.
Like command upgrade could go on this unit. So you really kind of can't go wrong. And definitely, if you have the points, you should probably fill it out.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because he's probably going to live. Like, let's be honest. In most of the time, like, your Vader will not die. There's a billion caveats that go into that, and hopefully by listening to this guide, you make it a little bit less likely your Vader's going to die. But often, many opponents will actually sort of try to play around him rather than play at him.
That is true.
Which means that you will be best served by investing as much as you can into that character. So that's all the upgrades, and we've talked about the unit card a bit. Let's get into the command cards. This is probably, I mean, these are extremely important. We should mention here that there are only 3 command cards that come in the starter set. There are 3 more that he is allowed to take. You are allowed to print and play them out from the Atomic Mass website, or they come in physical versions in the Vader and Veers pack, and also the Imperial command card pack for those who are interested. So, but we're going to talk about all of them here. And Mike, I'm going to let you pick which side we start at. Are we going to start at the 3-pip side or the 1-pip side? What do you think is most important?
I think let's start with the 3-pips, because I think it kind of,
I agree,
it instructs how you play him, whereas the 1-pips I would consider to be more tricks in your bag.
Yeah, which means we're probably going to start with Darkness Descents.
Yes, yeah.
So this card, this is an interesting divulge card, because there are other divulge command cards out there in the game. I would say most of them have one effect that is significantly super duper better than the other effect.
Yeah.
This is one where you actually do need to carefully consider, especially the board state at the beginning of the game and where the deployment zones are, what your kind of army your opponent has before you make that decision. Mike, you might think it's an easier call than I do, but like when it comes to whether you're divulging or not, what goes through your head?
I think, so your options here are you can either give Vader reliable 2 or you can infiltrate him, right?
Yeah.
Both of them are powerful effects, and just so that we have some kind of, I guess, perspective on what those do exactly is, obviously infiltrate is going to save you about 9 inches of movement. And reliable 2 is going to take your effective health from what is normally 16 to 24, generally. And
in melee, specifically.
In melee.
And also against high velocity.
Yes, yeah. And so it also has the potential of upping your damage potential. So those are, that's a 33% increased effectiveness as far as, no, it's 50% increased effectiveness as far as health goes in melee, which is a big deal. So with that being said, I think you should generally, and this is kind of where you need to have a picture of where you want Vader to be, kind of in your head, even before you play command cards. Because the infiltrate option is generally only good if you can keep him safe while doing it. And that generally requires you to have a line of sight blocker that is somewhere, close to where you want him to be, because again, he's slow. And if you have a line of sight blocker that will keep him safe, infiltrate him, that's fine. But generally speaking, the reliable 2 is going to keep him safer and hardier and just a powerhouse throughout most of the game anyways. The other thing specifically with Commander Vader is because of his compel bubble, which is only range 2, you do want to keep him near your army generally. Even though you might have inspiring presence or whatever, and that's out to range 4. Imperial Corps really need to have access to that compel, and whether it's coming from Vader or another source in your list like Krennic or whatever, like if you have Vader, you might not have another source of it, so making sure that he's close to your troops and kind of moving up with them is also a relevant thing to this conversation. So I would say that infiltrating him is definitely harder, and if you're looking for a quote-unquote safer route to play Vader, you should play this as the reliable 2 option. This also gives you the option of being a little bit more flexible with your command cards, is that it doesn't lock you into playing Darkness Descends on turn 1, which is also a big deal. It might, maybe you can play Standing Orders on turn 1 and then play Darkness Descends on turn 2 to make it kind of like slow roll the game a little bit more. I'm not sure if we have a video on Standing Orders yet, but I'm sure we will at some point.
We don't have one yet, but we did talk about it in the tempo video.
Okay.
About like how important it can be to go last in the first round of the game.
Yeah. Maybe we link that video here or something. But so that's what I would say about Darkness Descends. I think Infiltrate's very powerful, but I would recommend you use it sparingly until you have a good grasp of the situations where you would want to use it.
Only infiltrate if you truly feel like you're going to get value out of that, because with infiltrate, you only get one thing. You get one location / timing bonus, and then for the rest of the game, you're getting nothing. Reliable 2 is an active ability for the entire game. And that will often be better. The other thing I'll just quickly mention is that there's some objectives, particularly breakthrough, where you're going to be fighting so quickly that having infiltrate is actually not going to be mega meaningful. Although depending on your opponent's army, just like having the threat of an infiltrating Vader may actually make them be more conservative as they're approaching you on breakthrough. So again, just take a look at the battlefield, take a look at your opponent's army, try to figure out which one is really going to be better for you. The other 3-pip, Master of Evil, this is one of only 2 commands that actually, where Vader actually bothers to order anybody else. He's generally a pretty selfish commander, which seems appropriate. I don't think he really has a ton of respect for anybody else that's in the Empire except for himself. And but this one does order him and 2 units, which is nice as far as getting that extra control. But and he gets a dodge, which is also nice. It's a little bit less super necessary now that deflect is automatic, but helps him live a little bit longer. But the big thing with this is that when he activates, the timing is important there, that it is not at the beginning of the activation phase, but rather it is when Vader activates, which honestly makes that sometimes a better, sometimes a worse effect. But in any case, when he activates, every enemy trooper within range 2 gets 3 suppression tokens all at once. That's a lot, and that's the sort of situation that can, in one fell swoop, turn like 3 enemy units into the panic zone. It's because if you think about an average panic value being 4-ish, and then if they have 1 suppression already from your stormtrooper shooting at them or whatever, and then you activate Master of Evil, then all of a sudden Vader can go from your opponent winning a point by 2 units to you winning the point because they're not actually contesting it anymore.
They have 0.
Yeah, they have 0, exactly.
Yeah.
So I will say that this one is a little bit, if your opponent is experienced, it can be a little bit telegraphed. So just keep that in mind. But what else is there to say? Like, it's a big suppression bomb.
Yeah, it's a big suppression bomb. It's great for you should probably bring them to heal in your deck. You should also, one of the things that I would recommend on the Master of Evil turn is that if Vader can cut off the enemy commander's head while doing this, it is really devastating. In that you just all their guys are now Courage 1 and they all have 3 suppression tokens.
It's pretty rough.
Sorry, I guess you're not scoring anything this turn. And if it's like a rebel white save hero, that's not unrealistic, right? A little bit harder into droids and stuff, but that's definitely the money shot with Master of Evil for sure.
Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the only other team-oriented command card that Vader has, which is New Ways to Motivate Them. It's very, very good leader in the office, as shown by the art in this card. And this one, it allows you to order 2 trooper units. You don't have to order Vader with this one. You will fairly often, though. But basically, it means that anybody that has a face-up order token, or any trooper unit that is not Darth Vader with a face-up, can take a wound to take an additional action during that activation, which usually ends up being an additional move. Is typically the only reason that it's actually worth taking a wound for. The thing to mention up front is that most command cards that have effects like this name specifically that it only affects the units commanded by this card. This one does not. And so that means that your other sources of face-ups, which can be a combination of direct, coordinate, HQ uplink, those will all enable those units to be affected by New Ways to Motivate Them, and they don't have to be in any kind of range approximation to Vader for this to work. I'd say that the easiest example to think of this being used is dewbacks, right, Mike?
Yeah, I think dewbacks are definitely single character models or single models where taking a wound doesn't reduce the unit's effectiveness. And in the case of dewbacks, turns tenacity on.
Exactly.
Is probably the best case situation for this card. If you've got super squads or something to that effect, or riot control that has extra models, taking the 1 wound is not as big a deal. An extra action, which is almost always an extra move. I would say that the percentage of times that it's something else with this card is pretty low. Is really powerful. You know, triple moving or double moving and attacking is also, it's like giving a unit charge or steady.
Yeah. And so dewbacks are one example, but then another example can be something like a riot control squad or a snowtrooper flamethrower super squad, in order to, especially one that would have Imperial March, like for both those examples, because it allows them to get an extra 2 inches out of all of those movements. A fun one that you can do, and I think that in a future where the Inquisitors are a little bit better balanced than they are as we record this in mid-October 2025, a thing that you can do is order one of them, and if you activate Burst of Speed, then you can be doing a triple move with a saber user. Yep. So that is another strategy that you could use. There's definitely lots of fun ways to use this. I would say that there's some lists, especially basically there's some lists that aren't going to have really great targets for this. And if that's the case, then I feel like it's actually one of the Vader cards that you can leave behind. As long as the replacement would also order Vader, because Vader having the face up is like the consistent thing that you sort of need.
Yes.
And so an example would be that Krennic's 2-pip, Deploy the Garrison, is one that is still fairly often used, because that one, in a lot of Krennic lists, that can be a better card than New Ways, just because it allows you to get standby tokens on both Vader and a Death Trooper or something. But it's the one Vader command that's really not about Vader, but you should probably still be ordering him with one of those things, which means that you're using those other effects to get the other face-ups.
This might be a good time to just say out loud, if you're playing Darth Vader, you need a plan every turn to have an order on him.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, like full stop. Like there's like, you should not have a command card in your hand that you like, whether you like find a way to get him in order some other janky way. He doesn't really, you can't like uplink him or seize him, so it's a little harder than most characters. So command cards are kind of it. You need to be able to give him orders.
Yeah, so this is why Vader plays well with Krennic, who is not very selfish with his command cards, but he doesn't play as well with somebody like an Agent Callus, who usually wants to take his 1-pip in order to like get extra value out of his melee stuff. But like, given that his and several others 1-pips are selfish and that they wouldn't order Vader, the Vader list is usually going to want to get them the hell out of there, because you shouldn't have time for any command cards that don't order him. So now we'll finish off with the other 3 command cards that only order Darth Vader. So starting with the other 2-pip, Fear and Dead Men. This is it's a lot of text that basically it says that when Vader gets wounded from an attack, I should mention specifically, the attacker gets wounded just as much. So that's basically how it goes, and it's one of those that, like, it's weird because it makes the most sense to use when Vader is most in danger.
Yeah.
And so the advantage of it is that it makes your opponent pay a cost, sometimes a pretty severe cost, for actually getting damage on the guy. But it's not the sort of thing where you have a proactive ability that you're in control of, which makes it different from something like Darkness Descends or his 2 1-pips. So I feel like it's kind of a utility card for when you need it. There may be some games where you actually never use it. Do you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think the best case use for this card is if it looks like your opponent has dedicated their focus piece to killing your Vader, like, you know, their Anakin Skywalker is about to go ham on your Darth Vader, or their Yoda's coming in, or whatever, and it's clear that their plan is to kill Vader with their, 200-point character model. Playing Fear and Dead Men, at worst you're going to trade.
Yep.
Right.
And against somebody like Yoda, who is probably going to be double attacking you, potentially putting 8 dice on you, which if you roll badly could kill you, but that would also kill Yoda.
Well, and this is a good point to mention. The 8 health is relevant here because
yes,
many characters will actually die from fear and dead men before they can kill Vader. If Vader is full health when you play this, right? So, that is not insignificant.
If that Yoda has even 1 wound on him already, then it's like he's one bad defense roll from Vader away from just like dying, and then Vader is still standing there and going,
What's up?
Yeah, it's kind of wild. So it's a utility card, but it has a lot of utility in that exact situation. Next, let's talk about Implacable, because I'm saving my favorite for last. So Implacable is one where he gets a dodge token each time he activates. Now, why would you use activations plural when you're looking at this card? Well, it's because at the end of his first activation, when you activate his face up, you have the option of taking a wound, and then you kick the token right back into your bag, and you will be able to draw him again. But when you draw him again, he only gets 1 action. So that does mean that you will get to make up to 3 moves. It does mean you will get to make up to 2 attacks. You usually want to be using this in a situation where both of those things would be true. It also means that, I think this is what you were hinting at earlier, if you use Burst of Speed on the first of activation, you will also get the benefit of being Speed 3, I believe.
Yes.
Am I wrong on this? On the second activation.
Yeah. Force powers actually interact with Implacable in a really strong way. So Burst of Speed, because of the text on the card,
it gives him till the end of the round.
Gives him to the end of the round, so you can technically make 3 speed 3 moves. Additionally, Master of the Force triggers at the end of your activation as opposed to the end of the turn. So you can refresh Choke and then use it again. And because it's another activation, the normal using cards once during your activation doesn't apply here. So you can, force push something twice a turn or force choke something twice. This is an insanely strong card. This is Vader's. I'm gonna put you in your place card. I feel like it's just like you can basically do whatever you want with this card on the table. Generally you're going to kill 2 things because you're going to go twice and swing your lightsaber twice, and then you're also going to either force push something twice or force choke something twice.
An insane amount of damage output that can really only be matched by his younger self, and that's pretty much it in terms of like combining that much pierce with that many very good quality dice. There's a reason why all the things that Mike just mentioned with regards to the strength of having separate activations, there's a reason why Vader and Dark Troopers are the only situations where that happens in the game, because it's an extremely very, very powerful effect. And so that's Implacable. That's sort of, I think that's sort of the key command for him. Were you going to say something else?
I did. I did want to just talk shortly about when to actually activate Vader during the Implacable turn. Because it kicks his order back to the bag, generally, you want to wait to activate him the first time until last. This is a good on-the-way-in card, in that you go with your entire army, and then Vader goes last, kills something, force pushes something, and then you kick your order token back to the bag, and you immediately redraw it. And often, because it's +1 in your activations, your opponent will not get to go in between the Vader activations, which is huge. And you will still have complete order control on Vader. If you decide to play Implacable and immediately go with Vader as the first thing you do, all of a sudden Vader's token is swimming around in your bag with your 10 other Imperial activations, and it can get could be kind of like a race to the bottom to see if you pull Vader.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and you've delivered him a wound when you did that too, so he's also potentially vulnerable.
Right.
So I just wanted to kind of speak to that timing.
Yeah, that's where having improvise in your list will make it more likely that you can get to him faster. So that can be very, very helpful. All right, so the last command card we have is Vader's Might. This is my favorite just because it's just very fun and it's also extremely useful. So it functionally gives Vader a super force push. That also can cause some damage, and you can also use it in addition to force push, which is extremely powerful in its own right. And it doesn't have very many limitations. You can use this on literally any non-heavy unit out there. So that includes commanders. It includes any like vehicles that happen to be a support. He can be tossing those around, and the target has to be within one.
I'm pretty sure
you
could Vader's Might Grievous's new wheel bike.
Yeah, assuming that is in fact a commander rank, that actually is pretty hilarious.
We've seen the unit card; it's a commander rank.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Wow. So yeah, unless there's something we don't know about that's going to prevent it, that actually is going to be a really hilarious potential situation. But the target has to be within range 1, and then you place the leader within half range, and then also within height 1 of its current position. So again, that's within a half range and height 1 of its current position. This card used to actually be a lot more powerful in terms of the distance that you can move things, but it's moving something a half range and within height 1 is actually still really, really nice. And then you get to pick the cohesion for the rest of it, and then the really fun part is that you get to roll white dice for every mini they have, and any kind of paint will give them a wound. This means that it has the potential to be really, really powerful from a wound perspective against something like a super squad or a B1 unit that naturally has 6 minis. It does also mean that it has a little bit less wound potential against a single mini unit like an enemy commander or a lot of vehicles out there. But still, it's the fact that it's yet another free move your opponents thing that really makes this the most powerful. It means that you can just make a POI go from losing 2-0 to winning 0-1 right off the bat. And again, this is another one where it's usually useful to do it after your opponent has already activated their stuff, which means that they don't have an opportunity to try and move back. Vader's Might is just super duper strong. Like, what else is there to say, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think Vader's Might and Implacable are two of the most action-intensive cards in the game. In that they make Vader's activation, like, he does like 6 or 7 things, like 6 or 7 actual like game state technical actions, whether they're free actions or regular actions. So the fact that he just gets another free action on Vader's Might is huge. And both of these cards allow you to swing points like nobody's business. There's really nothing bad to say about it.
Yep. It's both fun and powerful, which is like the most that you can ask for.
Unless it's being done to you.
Yeah, then it becomes scary and not fun. But regardless, that covers it for Vader. This ended up being a long TFT mini, but if there was going to be anybody who needed a longer one, it was going to be Commander Vader. This is going to allow our operative one to be quite a bit shorter.
We'll see.
But we'll see. But I think that it's good to just recover a couple of recap points, which is if I had to pick like 3 points to recap from, it would be to have a plan for where Vader is going to be for most of the game. Have a plan for what the order of your command cards is going to be. And then the third item, what would you have to pick for the third one, Mike?
Kill stuff and do it fast.
Kill stuff. Kill stuff and move fast, yeah. He is like the best example of a ballistic missile in the game. and which means that if you aim it properly, he can do a lot of damage. But if you're shooting it off somewhere where the enemy is not, then he will have been a big waste of resources.
If there is any doubt where you should put Vader in a game, just point him at the highest concentration of enemy models and
trooper models specifically.
Trooper models generally, although he's not terrible in the vehicles either. Just
certainly,
just send him on his way.
Yeah, I have implacable. Just like in one round killed. I haven't done it to an ATST, but I have done it to an ISP, and it's pretty satisfying when you can do that. Yeah. Okay, so if you like what we're doing here, then please consider donating to our Patreon, and we'll see you at the next TFT meeting.